Tisha B'Av. B'ezrat Hashem, we should make it. And B'ezrat Hashem. The Gemara says that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, when Tisha B'Av would fall on a Shabbat like this year, he wanted to, take away altogether Tisha B'Av. There should be no Tisha B'Av that year. But the Chachamim ruled, no, you have to do something. So they postponed it to Sunday. But it just shows you the gift we have in a way, if you want to say, that it falls on Shabbat. Because Shabbat is the solution, is the mitigation for the morning of Tisha B'Av. The morning of Tisha B'Av is the crying over the destruction of the temple. And the light of Shabbat is so powerful that this is the rectification of the destruction of the temple. To shine in the light of Shabbat, which is the light of the world to come, into this world that's already rectifying the whole thing of the destruction of the temple. So in a way we have it good this year. In a way that Tisha B'Av is pushed off, so it's not the real day. So it really makes it a bit more cooler. But also that it falls on Shabbat is a big gift, B'ezrat Hashem. So we should hold on. We should make it 1 week till Tisha B'Av, B'ezrat Hashem. So now a lot to talk about tonight. But just before we go on, I'd like to remind some people, everyone, about some beautiful parables that Rabbi Nachman gave on the message of hope, and how hope is mainly the main teachings of the tzaddikim is to give hope to Am Yisrael. So Rabbi Nachman, he has an amazing parable. People may have heard of it or not, but it's so powerful because it comes back again and again in life when you hear it, that it's so useful and it's true in a way. He has a parable called the Turkey Prince.
What's it?
The Turkey Prince.
Turkey.
Prince, right? The turkey gobble gobble prince, right? So just a quick reminder for those who don't know the story or do whatever. So there was a king who had a prince. The son was the prince, the future king, and suddenly the prince went mad. He went literally nuts, and he thought he was a turkey, and he began to act like a turkey. He took off all of his clothing, and he went under the table, and he started picking at the crumbs of the food under the table, and making noises like a turkey, everything like a turkey. And the father was going nuts. Who can help my son? And he put up signs all over for people to come to try to heal my son, and there'll be a big reward and everything. So they came all type of magicians and sorcerers and physicians and psychologists and philosophers. All types of people came to try to heal the son, but no one could help him. The son was still cuckoo. It didn't help. So then came along a wise man, a chacham, a scholar, and he said, I can help your son. I can heal your son, but on condition, no questions asked. You see what I do, you let me do what I have to do to heal him. Don't ask, don't get involved, no questions. And the king agreed, the ministers agreed. So then the wise man took off all of his clothing also, and he went under the table. And he started pecking at the crumbs like the prince. The prince was shocked. He said, who are you? He said, who am I? I'm a turkey. Who are you? He said, I'm also turkey. I said, okay, so let's be friends. Let's gobble together. So after getting accustomed to him, the wise man lifted up the drape over the table, and he signaled to the ministers, send 2 t-shirts. So they sent 2 t-shirts, and the wise man began to put on his t-shirt. So the turkey said, what are you doing? He said, what's the problem? You can still be a turkey and put on a t-shirt. It doesn't contradict. It's okay. It's perfectly all right. So he agreed. He put on his t-shirt. And then after a while, he signaled, send 2 underwears and pants, whatever. And they brought that also. And he said the same thing. What are you doing? A turkey can't wear this. He said, you can still be a turkey and put on this. It's not a problem. And like this, slowly, the wise man got the prince totally dressed. And then he went from under the table to sit at the table. And again, he asked, what are you doing? What is this? Turkeys and wheat on the floor and crumbs. He says, you can also be a turkey and eat at the table. It's not a problem. So, like this, he lifted him up until he was totally healed and became again the prince. Even though he was a turkey, but this wise man, this sage, was able to lift him up. And this story is very powerful because it shows the compassion of the tzaddikim, the wise men. The true wisdom is to bring themselves down to the level of the person who feels he's a turkey, he feels he's trapped, he feels he's far, whatever. But the tzaddikim have the ability, through their teachings, to go down to you. That is a true sage. someone who can bring to you what you need, and not that you have to work to get to it. The tzaddikim, their mission is the people who feel very far, like we were spoken about in the past weeks, very far from Hashem, to be able to teach them that there's still hope. You can still be and become who you're supposed to be, even though you may be a Turkey, you may be trapped, you may be far and everything, but we can help you. And this is the beauty of the teachings of the tzaddikim, the wise men, as opposed to the physicians, the philosophers. By everyone, it's a 50. It's not 100%, and it's a risk, and also it's a lot of difficulty to follow that procedure. And maybe it'll work, but by the tzaddikim, it's a totally different approach. They know exactly what the person needs, and they go down to that person's level and give it to them. This is the beauty of the teachings of the sages. The tzaddikim were able to go down and to rescue and to heal people. This is one parable that Rabbi Nachman gives. Another one that he gives is there was once a man in Moscow, and he dreamt that all the way in Vienna, under a certain bridge in Vienna, there was a treasure. And the dream was so crystal clear, like he saw the address and the street, the exact place with the exact bridge, and where under the ground in the earth is buried the treasure. It was so accurate in his dream. So when he woke up, the dream was still with him, and he said, it must be true. If it's so clear, crystal clear, I saw it 100% clear. So he set off to go to Vienna, and he arrived, and just like in his dream, he saw all the streets and everything like GPS. He knew exactly where to go, and he reached the bridge, and he reached the spot where supposedly there's supposed to be the treasure under the ground. And he brought a shovel. He wanted to start digging, but he saw there was like a police officer, like a guard, surveying over the bridge, and he felt uncomfortable. He started digging, and the police officer and people, what's going to be? So while standing there pondering what to do, the police officer looked at him and became suspicious of him, and he came up to him and he said, what are you doing here? So he got frightened. He said, maybe I'll tell him the truth. He told him the truth. I had a dream that under this bridge right over here, there's a treasure right over here. I came all the way to dig it. He figured by telling the truth to the police officer, maybe they can split the treasure. So the police officer said, what night did you have this dream on? And he said, such and such a night. He said, you silly Jews. I also had a dream on that night. I dreamt that there's in Moscow, a certain Jew looks like exactly like you in his house, and looks like this, the house, a hut and everything. And under his bed in this certain room, move over the planks, under the ground there's a treasure. You see me running to Moscow? So he said, thank you. You're right, I'm sorry. So he quickly went back home. He's describing his home. He came back home, and he arrived home. He moved over the bed. He tore open the planks. He started to dig, and he found the treasure. So Rabbi Nachman teaches something amazing, that the treasure that you need in life for your fulfillment is by you. It's right under your nose. But you have to go elsewhere in order to be awakened to realize that the treasure is by you. And while going elsewhere, he says you come across to the tzaddikim. The tzaddikim who are elsewhere, they begin to reveal to you what you're looking for all along is by you. It's next to you. It's right next to you. The treasure that you need to come back, to activate whatever has to be activated for the process of advancing and coming close to Hashem, it's right next to you, and you don't have to go anywhere. It's right next to you. But in order to know that it's next to you, that it's by you, you need this awareness, which is the idea of traveling to the tzaddikim. And that's also hinted in what the rabbis teach, that our goal in the mourning over the destruction of the temple is to transform the pe'er tachat efer, to take the ashes of the burning of the temple, and the ashes that signify mourning, that there was something and now it's not here anymore, it's burnt, and we're lost, and we have nothing, and this attitude of mourning, and I'm in misery and everything. It's efer, ashes, aleph peresh, and to rearrange the same letters to transform it to pe'er, which means glory. It's here all along. It's by you all along. The solution for what you need in life is here. Just the problem is the coordination of the letters. It's efer right now, and I have to transform the efer to pe'er. So what to do? It's by doing what we do when there's efer. We mourn. We cry out to Hashem. The part of the mourning is we're crying out to Hashem. Oh, how I miss this. Oh, I'm so far from you, and this and that. by that expression that begins the transformation of the ashes into pe'er. But the bottom line is, it's by a person. His solution, like it says in the Torah, ki karov elecha hadavar. The thing you need is close to you. It's not somewhere far. It's right next to you. Just the thing is, I need the da'at, I need the level of knowledge to know that it's next to me. I need that awareness. I need to be lifted from being in the constriction of my situation, just to look above it, above the situation. I can see the maze. Now I understand. But that da'at comes from the tzaddikim. So the main focus of the tzaddikim, of the true leaders and throughout Am Yisrael's history, is to infuse the Jewish people with da'at, true da'at. And that da'at gives them the power, the ability not to stumble, not to fall into sin or blemishes, whatever. The da'at to know that here's a dead end, here you can make a right. It's like from looking at the maze from above. This is the perspective of the tzaddikim. And they try to infuse people with da'at. They know what moves to make in life. Here, don't make a right over here. Make a left here. Go straight, go down. All these moves is da'at. So now we said in the past weeks that in order that there should be da'at, the prerequisite is what's called yirat shamayim. This is a funny term, yirat shamayim, which means what? Fear of heaven. When you hear the term, it sounds funny. It makes more sense to say fear of Hashem, yirat Hashem. Say fear of Hashem. Say fear of Elohim, fear of the Lord, fear of God. But why this term, fear of heaven, yirat shamayim? What's this funny connotation? Say it directly, fear of Hashem. That's the goal, to fear Hashem, not to sin. What's fear of shamayim? So in here, in this word shamayim itself, is the indication of what the tzaddik is trying to give over, and also by extension, what we said about last week and the week before, each person having the responsibility to teach other people his wisdom, and that it should stay with them. You also need to have what's called yirat shamayim, in order that the words that you are emanating stay by the person. What is yirat shamayim? The word shamayim, we know, Rashi brings down, is made up of two words, esh umayim, fire and water. So it can be translated as fear of fire and water. What's the fear of fire and water? Esh umayim shamayim. We said, in previous weeks also, that the tzaddikim, they try to teach and express wisdom to each person according to what they need. We said, for example, there are people who are in the category of what's called Dari Mala, people who are way up there. Big shots, big tzaddikim, big people. But the real tzaddikim, the true leaders, in order for these people to keep on going and advancing, they have to be shown that they're still very far. That they're in the aspect of what? That they got nowhere still. They're advancing. But in order that they should not stop and take a break and a vacation, hey, I reached a high level, wow, I'm up there on the mountain, everything, in order that they should not say that, because if they do begin to think that, they'll stop their growth. So the tzaddikim are able to open up for these people a level of awareness to show that what you've accomplished is still nothing in comparison to what's out there, because Hashem is infinite. Hashem is called the Infinite One, meaning what? There's endless levels of understanding Hashem. Just like Hashem is endless, so too the contemplation and the grasp of knowing Hashem is also endless. So a person may think, oh, I'm advancing. You're advancing compared to where you were. But now look where you have to go to, you're still nowhere. So the tzaddikim send for these high people that level of awareness. It won't break them, because they're up on the ladder, up all the way there. They need dafka, this type of a patch, to show them that they have to keep on going. You're still nowhere. What did you accomplish? You're still far. And now the opposite, which is the case of the majority of the people in the world, the Dari Mata, the people who dwell in the earth, literally, they're sunk in the physicality, in sin, in blemishes and everything. So the tzaddikim show them a level of da'at, just the opposite, that Hashem is next to them, is with them, and by them, and every tiny act they do, any tiny movement they do to come close to Hashem makes a tremendous difference, is worlds of a difference, and is a value, and that Hashem is next to them. They implant this da'at into these people who are so far, in order that they should not give up, and they should keep on going and go forward. So in both cases of the Dari Mala, the people who are up there, the big shots, the big tzaddikim, and the people who are in the earth literally, for both The tzaddik's message is a level of da'at to keep them going up. But for the high people, they have to be pushed down in order to keep on going up. And the people who are already down lower, if you hit them lower, they're going to just drop everything. So they need the encouragement boost to show them that every tiny thing you do makes mountains move. It's unbelievable what you're doing. It's great. It's phenomenal. And that pushes both of them upwards. So now, in context of this, we see fire and water. What's the fire? These people who are up there, if they keep on going, and also they might burn out. By going up and up and up and up, the tzaddik has fear, yirat shamayim. He has fear of fire, meaning what? He has a fear of that these people who are just advancing, they'll burn out by becoming comfortable. That's an expression that they'll keep on going, but because they advanced, also they don't have the vessels to contain the levels that they're advancing to. They burn out. So there's fear of being burnt by their fire. So the tzaddik has to infuse with them this attitude that they're still very far, in order to cool them down, to cool down the fire, right? That they shouldn't burn out from the intensity of the fire, of the heat, of the high level of spiritual that they're reaching. So the tzaddik, hey, you're still far. He cools them down from the fire, so they shouldn't get overburnt. So this is the idea of yirat esh, fear of the fire part, and on the opposite, mayim, the water part, that those people who are so down in the earth, there's a fear that they'll drown. That they'll drown in their depression, in their sorrow, in their thoughts of futility. I'm getting nowhere, I got nowhere in life, and it's not working out, and just things are miserable, and it's a dead end. So there's a fear that these people will be drowned by the water. So for them, the tzaddik has to give a teaching which heats up the water that they're in, boils it, to give them that encouragement, the boost, to get out of the being drowned, to get up. It's not over. There's hope. Get out of the water. So he heats up the water by giving that da'at that infuses them with this heat. This now is the idea of yirat shamayim, this funny term, yirat shamayim. Because in it, you have the type of da'at, knowledge, attitude that the tzaddik teaches of two types of people, esh and mayim, fire and water. For those who are high, to give them water to cool down their fire, and the people who are drowning in the water, to give them heat, to steam up the water, to get them out, that they'll jump up and they'll go forward, they'll advance. So this is the yirat shamayim, words of yirat shamayim, which means what? In both cases, and ultimately, we know, Rav Nosson explains, by the way, that the main thing for us people in this world is the teachings that we shouldn't drown. We're in the water. We're about to sink in the drown. And like it said, like King David says, Tavati biven mitzula. I'm drowning in like a quicksand. I'm falling in the quicksand ve'ein ma'omad, and there's no grip to stand. I'm sinking in. The main thing is to infuse encouragement for Am Yisrael. So that means that when I want to talk to another person words of da'at, words of wisdom, I must make sure that there's not one trace of any words that can lead the person to thoughts of futility, of yeush, of despair, God forbid. That every word I can give to a person is only of hope. Because if a person is now down in the bottom, and here is even something which can be a hint to a thought of despair, it can destroy that person. I have to make sure when giving over words of encouragement, words of Torah, words of da'at, to help that person, that it should only elevate him and not drown him, God forbid. It should keep him afloat. I just have to bring this story down, that unfortunately there was a Breslover chassid, he just passed away last year, of Nachman Burstein of blessed memory from Katamon. So he had a very difficult episode in his life. After 9 kids, his wife suddenly passed away. Left him 9 orphans, all alone, and it was tragic. A man in the middle of his middle years, in the strength of his years, he lost his wife suddenly like that. So many people, when they came to Menachem to console him, so many people were broken. They came crying. So he stood up and he said, Rabbi Sai, anyone who can give me words of encouragement should stay. Anyone who can't, please leave. He didn't want even a trace of thoughts of futility and what are you going to do now, your kids and everything. He couldn't stand that. In his situation, he was strong to know and to say only words of encouragement. That's all I can take right now. If I'm given even one word or one thought of futility, it's going to knock me off totally. So this idea, I'm using this as an analogy, that this is what's needed for the majority of people today, is almost 99% words of encouragement. There's a teaching by Rav Nosson that for every spoonful of a words of an arousal, to come to wake up and you're sleeping, you're, well, life, how could you be like this? Wake up already. For every spoonful of words of arousal, you need a bucket of words of encouragement to match it, to come with it. The encouragement needed in life is like 99% more than the words of arousal that come to you. That's what's needed in the main. And when you do that, when you manage to have the right da'at, which is yirat shamayim, in other words, you're afraid not to let the person drown by words of water to drown him more, but rather you heat him up with words of encouragement to get him back up, that everything he does, that's how your words can be accepted by another person. That you're concerned. You're sharing words, what you have yirat shamayim means that you're concerned with teachings that are giving you encouragement. And you're holding on with these words, so then you're able to give over to other people these words of encouragement. So now, ultimately, what happens after all this? Fine, people now get back up on their feet, and they start again, and they come back to Hashem, and they're full of encouragement, and they're infused with this da'at and yirat shamayim, whatever you want to call it, and they get back up on their feet. What does this lead to? It leads to what's called a revelation of Ratzon. Ratzon means the divine will, but also it's open to many interpretations also. Ratzon means your personal desire and will to come back to Hashem. When a person, God forbid, is drowned in panic and in despair, the main thing attacked in the person is his Ratzon, the desire. Because what keeps a person alive more than anything else, what keeps the heartbeat of the Jew alive, not to give up, is desire. There's a desire to live, a desire to grow. I don't know if I mentioned this story. I'll mention it again. My apologies if I mentioned it. I mentioned this story many places. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but it's worth mentioning it. But if I didn't mention it, stop me in the middle. That I had a neighbor upstairs. I told you about the neighbor, the widow. Okay, here we go. I had a neighbor upstairs, Mrs. Fleischer, of blessed memory. She passed away maybe 2 years ago, a Holocaust survivor. She survived Auschwitz and also Bergen-Belsen, which was the worst. Bergen-Belsen, people who went through that camp, they'll tell you the miracles they had to survive that camp. It was the worst. So she wrote a book in Hebrew, Two from a Family, Shtayim Mitoch Mishpacha. A famous writer in Hebrew, Chaim Walder, he's the one who wrote the book. And the book is unbelievable. It's filled from beginning to end with miracles, but especially the miracles of hope. What's one point that stuck out from this book is phenomenal. That from the beginning that she was taken in, she was in the camps for a year and a half. In other words, she was from Hungary, and the Germans, they came last to Hungary to deport the Jews in Hungary was at the very end. So she was taken when she was 14 years old, a young girl, mamash, and she lost her parents. And her brother, she didn't know till she passed away if he was still alive, because she couldn't forget him. And Rashi says in the Chumash that when somebody's still alive, you can't forget that person. Like when someone passes away after the year, then the memory, the heartbreak goes away. Slowly and slowly and slowly. But when someone is still alive, like Yaakov, for 22 years, he couldn't rest about Yosef, because Yosef was still alive. And they told him he was devoured by an animal and everything, Taraf Yosef, but he couldn't accept it. So Rashi says this rule, that a person who's still alive, you're never consoled. You can't be consoled. So till she passed away, she was always feeling that her brother, she couldn't swallow that her brother passed away, because there was no proof. On the day of the liberation, they couldn't find the brother, and also she had no idea. So she was left with this feeling. But her parents were taken, the brother, and her sister, by miracle, was with her from the beginning to the end. They were never separated. When they came to Auschwitz, Mengele, who was there, he ordered her to go to the right and the sister to the left. And the sister pulled her, come here, come. She came with her. So they were together from the beginning, by miracle, to the end. So on Liberation Day, she writes like this, that a week before liberation, the Germans, they gave the Jews who were still alive bread with poison inside. They injected it with poison. And her sister, she put the bread on the side. When you're not eating for many days, you lose your appetite. Shamrachim, we should never know, but a person loses their appetite. So she'll put it on the side for later on. And she ate it immediately, and she began to become sick. And it reached a point on Liberation Day that in the bunks, on the rows, that they would pack them in to sleep together. So if someone wanted to turn, they will all have to turn together in order to turn on the right side or the back, whatever. They would all have to turn together. So on the day of liberation, she was trying to turn in the morning to get out. They were all dead. All the people on her row in the bed were dead, and also by the sister. So they were looking out the window, and they saw German soldiers running. And then for an hour, they saw nothing. And then they saw soldiers in different uniforms running around, like British, French, Canadian, whatever, American. So they saw that there was liberation. So they did their best of the last bit of strength they had to crawl out of the bunk beds that they were in. And they fell to the floor, and they were crawling out of their bunk in order to show that they're still alive. So when all these armies came and they saw the situation in Bergen-Belsen, they were flipping out. The soldiers, they couldn't believe what they saw. They said on Liberation Day itself, about 12,000 Jews died. Just on that day, from the starvation, whatever. So immediately, they took one of the big bunkers of the Germans, and they made it into a temporary hospital. And quickly, they sent telegraphs to all over Europe for medical aid, medical assistance. And they got from Belgium, from France, all types of nurses and doctors started to come. And they had this temporary base that they made into a hospital. So while they were slowly putting in the people who were still alive, the Jews were still alive, the doctors were going around checking each person who was still alive, and they put on their forehead or one X, or two X's, or three X's of a marker. So when they came to her and her sister, and they saw that the soldiers, they didn't know what to do to help them. They gave them coffee or whatever to help them to sustain them, something to drink, whatever. So when the doctors came, they put on her sister's forehead one X, and on her forehead, three X's. And they didn't know what it meant. And then they took them to the hospital, the middle floor, and they put her in one corner of the room, and her sister one X on the forehead and another corner. And she noticed, she was placed in the bed by the window, that anyone on the floor that had three X's, she saw that they were taking them up to the third floor. And she saw the window. She had access to look at the window. She saw afterwards that they came out dead. They took the bodies dead and laid them on the grass and then covered them. So she understood that the people with three X's were people who were severely sick, and they were killing them. The doctors, all because they were scared of it was typhus. It was very madbik. It was a very very dangerous sickness that can go on other people. So they were injecting them to kill them, so they shouldn't before they get others sick. So they came to take her bed. And she became friendly in that first day, with a nurse who came from Antwerp, from Belgium. And she came also with the doctors to take her bed, to bring her to the third floor in order to kill her. So she began to beg, please don't kill me. Please, I want to live. Don't kill me. Please. And he said, but you're sick and it's dangerous and this. Don't touch me. Don't decide to take my life away. Let me live. Please, I won't do anything. Leave me in the corner. Don't touch me. Don't take care of me. Don't take any responsibility for me. Just let me live. 14-year-old, 15-year-old girl. So she had such compassion. She started to cry, the nurse. She was painful. And they said, okay, but we're not taking any responsibility. You're in the corner. You managed to survive the way you want to survive. She said, yes, just don't kill me, please. They said, okay. They let her stay in the corner. Her sister had one X on the forehead, right? She managed to smuggle her milk to sustain her for 1 week. She was living off milk. And the doctors, after a week, they saw that she's still alive. They came to her and they checked her. And they said, okay, we're going to take care of you. Like they said, we see that you're better, we're going to take care of you. They brought some German soldiers who were using as the handymen now. They're slaves now. They put the nail in the wall to hold the IV, the sac of the intravenous, whatever. And that's how she survived. That point is so amazing. That the ratzon is the key for survival, is that a person has a desire to live. And when a person is thrown down in desperate situations, the first thing that, God forbid, is what's going to destroy the person is his desire, his ratzon. And that ratzon is so important. That's the lifeline. Ratzon is the lifeline. Like we said maybe last year, if you remember, that ratzon, the numerical value of ratzon is how much again? Reish Tzadik Vav Nun. It stands, I think it's 246. Moshe is one number underneath. Moshe is Mem 40, Hey 5, Shin 345. Ratzon is 346, and 344 is Shmad, destruction. Destruction. Moshe, the tzaddik, the teacher, he stands between destruction and Ratzon. Meaning what? The mission of Moshe Rabbeinu, and by extension all the tzaddikim, is not just to teach Gemara and the laws of the Torah and to give over the structure. That's the byproduct. The main teaching of the tzaddikim is to save people from destruction, to give them that da'at, in order that they should go to the side of Ratzon, of desire, that a call to live, a yearning to live and to continue existence. This is the main job of the tzaddikim, to teach them a da'at in the format that gives them hope. It's one thing, okay, there's all the laws of Shabbat, the laws of Tzitzit, the laws of Tisha B'Av, the laws of Yom Kippur, there's all the laws, and there's the Gemara and the Mishnah and everything, and the whole body of the Torah, which is an intellectual part. But behind that, I need the drive to want to connect to that. And that drive is what's called Ratzon. And the Yetzer Hara, the evil side, he does everything possible to kill a person's Ratzon, to destroy it. He can't directly head on take away a person's Ratzon, because that's untouchable. The person's Ratzon is the essence of the Jew. So what does the Yetzer Hara do? He scares a person. He creates all types of phobias and fears in life. So the person on his own should sign out, okay, here's my Ratzon, I give up, God forbid. He does a grama, it's called, a grama. He makes a person have phobias and fears, and by doing that, to drop it. These are called fallen fears. To counter that, we need what's called yirat shamayim, the fear of fire and water, the fear of heaven. In other words, to counter the false fears, the phobias of that's it, I'm finished, I'm burnt out, or I'm drowning, and that's it, I'm finished. The tzaddikim infuse da'at in the format of yirat shamayim to keep people on the go. This again is another famous statement that everyone has heard, that the world is a very, very narrow bridge, and the main thing is what? Shelo lehitpached. The actual wording by Rabbi Nachman is lehitpached. Rav Shlomo Karlbach, he changed it to lefached, which means the main thing is not to be afraid, but the word lehitpached is more stronger. What is lehitpached? Number one, it includes in it not to be afraid, but also don't make yourself afraid. That's a false phobia. Don't become afraid by the Yetzer Hara scaring you. Oh my God, look, you're about to fall. It's a narrow bridge. What's the secret of walking on the narrow bridge? By not looking to the right and not looking to the left. It's a narrow bridge, that means if I look, oh my God, I see how deep it is. The looking will induce the false phobia and the false fear, and the person, God forbid, will drop. They say, for example, there's a certain bird, and there's a certain type of snake when he wants to eat this type of bird. So the bird's up on the tree. How does the snake devour this bird? He opens his mouth wide with the fangs sticking out in front of the bird. And the bird looks down, and from the panic of looking at the mouth of the bird, of the snake, the bird falls straight into his mouth. He falls straight down in because of the fear. You're on the tree, you can fly away. No, he's looking here, and the phobia causes him to fall into the mouth, into the trap of the snake. Meaning what? That it's the fear-induced, the false fear-induced. It's not a real fear. Oh my God, what's going to be with this? What's going to be with that? What's going to be with my children? What's going to be all the types of worries? Those are false fears. Because you're walking on a narrow bridge, you have what to do, you have nothing to be afraid of. The main thing is, nothing happened, so what are you afraid about? What's going to be, what's this? It's killing most people. It eats their life away of the false phobias. So how to counter that? Okay, thank you very much. What do I do now? I need an advice. So to counter the false fear is the words of Yirat Shamayim of the tzaddikim. In order to counter this false fear, which leads to futility and yeush and taking my ratzon away from me, I need to fuel positive desire by hearing words of tzaddikim. That's why it's so important to find these proper leaders, these true leaders, the ones who infuse that in the format of Yirat Shamayim, that give me the boost to keep on going in life. This is really what we need. And going back now to these 3 weeks, we're mourning over the temple, but the rabbis teach also that the death of tzaddikim is even harder, is even much more severe than the destruction of the temple. Why? Why is that? The temple, come on. The whole world was connected to the Beit HaMikdash. Till today, our whole thing is the Beit HaMikdash. And now that the rabbis also teach us that you should know that the concealment of the tzaddikim, the passing of the tzaddikim, is even worse than the destruction of the temple. Because the whole purpose of the temple was to infuse da'at. Da'at, this type of da'at. You had two opposites here. In the temple, for example, a person would bring a regular animal, and this animal was sacrificed, and it became something super high. That's the idea of taking the people who are low and boosting them upwards, and Hashem is with you, next to you. Look, they take an animal, and he's offered as a sacrifice. He becomes what's called reach nichoach ishel Hashem, a pleasant fragrance to Hashem. So you take someone who's low, an animal, and we transform it to something super duper holy. It becomes a korban, right? And also the opposite, that the elyonim lemata and tachtonim lemala. The animals go up, but also Hashem, He brings, as if to speak, Himself down. He brings the whole upper, the divine presence was brought down. This is the idea of those who are high. It's Hashem, but Hashem's divine presence coming down is to indicate this idea that those who are high must be lowered. Just like Hashem, so to speak, lowered His holiness into the temple, to this world, the Shekhinah, divine presence. So this is the upper ones being brought down. In other words, you're still very far. That's the concept of taking those who are up and bringing them down. This was the temple. And this is the idea of da'at. And the tzaddikim do the same thing on a much more personal level. They teach da'at in such a way that every person has this. That the people who are very far, they're getting boosted to show that they're very close to Hashem. And those who are very close are shown that they're very far in order to get them going further. There was once a story of a big Kabbalist. His name was Reb Yudel. He was the son-in-law of Reb Liba Volochisk. These were big people. These were big tzaddik. And this Reb Liba Volochisk, he passed away on the way to Eretz Yisrael. And he asked that before he passed away, they should put a plank of wood on the sea and put his body on it and let it float by itself. It'll arrive to Eretz Yisrael by itself. Unbelievable. And before that, while there was a storm in the Mediterranean on the way to Eretz Yisrael. So while they were on the ship, there was like a big sea monster that came out. That's the story as it goes. Like a big whale that wanted to destroy the ship. So he quickly put on his talit and tefillin and went on the deck. And when this big sea shark, whatever, saw him, he backed off. He went back in. So these are big people, this Reb Lib. And his son-in-law, Reb Yudel, he came from a very wealthy family. And when he got married, his father-in-law, Reb Lib, was very poor. That all they were eating all week long was borscht. You know what borscht is? It's made from beets and wooden spoons. And he came from a family that they had nice plates and silverware and normal food. And it was very hard for him. His father-in-law wanted to support the couple. There was a custom called the kest in Yiddish, to support the parents of the bride. They take care of the chatan and kala for the first year or 2 years, while the chatan immerses totally in Torah study. And then after that, he goes to the parents of the chatan to take care. So even though he was poor, he wanted to take care of the couple. So in the house they had wooden spoons and borscht, and he was getting sick from just eating borscht every day. So then Reb Leib said, "Taste from my dish." He gave him some. They were eating the same food, borscht. He took some of his borscht, he put it in his mouth. It tasted like a taste from Gan Eden. He says, "You see, it's not the food; it's the eater of the food. It's the person who eats the food." In any event, I'm saying this to show the greatness of these people. So this Reb Yudel, he was a big Kabbalist in himself, and he found out about Rabbi Nachman, and he wanted to come to him to become a follower. So he came, and he approached him like the way of Hasidim. Like what? He said, Yorenu Rabbeinu derech bavodat Hashem. Let our master show us a way to serve Hashem. He was speaking in a haughty manner. Let our master show us a way to serve Hashem. So Rabbi Nachman said to him, Ladat ba'aretz dakecha? You want to know the way of Hashem while you're steeped in the earth? And as he put him down, he got him, he smacked, he gave him a patch, like this idea that people who are up there, they put him down. So he got him, he smacked him. And And the story goes on that afterwards Rabbi Nachman, he revealed to him an intense revelation of fear. And he got so afraid, Rav Yudel, because he saw like a fear of glory coming from Rabbi Nachman. He got up from the table and he backed out. He went to the back. He left the room. He was so afraid. And then he came back in. The light was gone. He sat down at the table again. And again, Rabbi Nachman revealed an intense boost, a blast of this Yirat Shamayim. And again, Rav Yudel backed out. And it happened a few times. Then he said, Rabbi Nachman laughed. He says, "Come, sit down. I'm just like you, human being. It's just that I'm smarter than you." And then he broke his ga'ava. It's hard to say that, but he broke the high level in order to bring him to start learning. This is in context of what we learned. The people who are high, the tzaddikim, bring them down in order to push them to go forward. So just that's a story on the side. These ideas are very powerful. And again, what we're mourning is the tzaddikim. And when we have these tzaddikim, we have hope. The main thing is hope. And we don't let the world to fool us. And the main fooling of the world is to push people into futility, that it's over, God forbid, that they're finished. Their dreams and aspirations for good things, for building a family, to serve Hashem, to do good things, right? The Yetzer Hara wants to break that with the attitude of fear, which will lead that people will give up, God forbid. But the opposite is the real truth. The real truth that there's no such thing as despair. That's for sure. There's no word in the dictionary of Yehush. We have to take it out. Doesn't exist the word despair. That there's only hope. And that message comes from these tzaddikim. And the mourning over, the crying that we're doing in this time is that Hashem should reveal, again, number one, the Beit HaMikdash for sure, and Mashiach. But also on a personal level, we should have these tzaddikim become re-revealed the tzaddikim who are Moshe Rabbeinu every generation, to infuse us with these teachings of hope, the da'at of Yirat Shamayim, which gives us hope and that can help us to continue going until we keep on going up and up and up, until we merit becoming tzaddikim, and also Mashiach should come completely for Alam Yisrael B'ezrat Hashem. All right.
What should a person do in the situation that, let's say they're strong, but then the Yetzer Hara sends in friends and family to throw in that fear, to throw in that fear.
Right.
So like they're being strong, and they have that awareness, but now the Yetzer Hara, okay, I can't attack you directly.
Right, so he's using the grandma, the family, right.
Go to the friends and the family to attack you.
So it seems a person has to cut, if he's in a desperate situation, where he's on the verge of futility, and any word he can hear can break him totally, so he has no choice but to do what's called a lech lecha, like Avraham. Avraham, Hashem told Avraham, leave your family, leave your friends, leave where you came from, and come to the Holy Land. In other words, you have to leave. You have to cut. You have to cut. It's a temporary. Rabbi Nachman teaches, for example, when a person does certain blemishes, specifically sexual blemishes, so he creates evil forces, and these evil forces enter people around him. In other words, they begin to possess people around him to attack him. It's not them. It's not really them. They're being used by other evil forces, if you want to say that. This exists. There is this concept. So what to do? To run to Hashem, to run to Eretz Yisrael, to run to the tzaddikim, but not to stay there, because a person is going to be eaten up alive. He has to get out of the situation. Even though it's the family and this and that, he has to temporarily, goodbye, escape for a while, disappear. Huh?
You try to encourage your family sometimes.
But now if the person himself needs encouragement, he's being attacked, how could he encourage others if he's now all the way down below?
The person is strong.
Person is strong, but they're attacking him in what sense?
To bring in the fear. To bring the fear.
Okay. So the person has to be strong. If now they're breaking him.
You're saying to confront the person.
I'll start with encouragement.
Encouragement.
So I'll try to encourage them.
But if
they're afraid.
If that's the case.
I'm not sure if they're afraid.
Yeah. Or they're being used. They're being used. That's what it seems more. Right. You have to be wise and not to be fooled into believing what you're seeing is the real reality.
Right.
But rather to believe that there's a different reality. The real reality is only good. And when a person is filled with thoughts of panic and futility and despair, that is for sure from the Yetzer Hara. There's no truth in it. But what's the scary part? the Yetzer Hara begins to rationalize. But look, I'll prove it to you that there's despair. Look, A, B, he said that. Look at the document. Look at this. Look at that. All these things, and it drives a person nuts. See, there's what's called the emet, and there's what's called the emet lamito, the real truth. The truth may be, you're right. You're right. What you're saying is true. I'm finished, and this, and there's no more I can talk about. But the real truth is that Hashem is running the world, and Hashem in a second can transform everything for my good. And I want to go and run my life according to the real truth, not according to your truth. The Yetzer Hara gets people trapped to running with his truth, which is truth. It's truth. He brings proofs to it. It's valid and logical and rational. But there's the real truth. And the real truth is that there's only hope. And Rav Nosson writes somewhere that the indication that the Yetzer Hara is playing games with you is now if you come out with whatever you, even in Torah. I think we spoke about it last week, or I think it was here, that a person can learn Torah and get feelings of depression. Like for example, when a person learns books of Musar, of ethical rebuke, if it breaks him, then no, this is the Yetzer Hara now. The author had never intention to break a person. If now I'm becoming broken by learning it, and it's breaking me to the degree that I'm falling to futility and depression and I'm finished, then I got the wrong address. I'm not at the level to read these books. Read something else. But how could it be the Torah? It's you the problem in the sense that these words at your level right now are not to help you. Another person who maybe lived 200 years ago, he can hear this and be built by it. It's not a problem. For the people who are Darei Mala, the people who are up there, to hear ethical rebuke, it just builds them. Because that's what they need, to smack them, and they're up there, so it smacks them to go back. But the people today who are literally in the earth, any ethical rebuke, even tiny, will shatter them totally. Right? So here's an example. But it's the truth. It's part of the Torah, and it's standard, and the rabbis teach. You have to learn Musar every day and everything. What are you going to do about that? So again, the Yetzer Hara comes in, even in the Torah, and he attacks a person with his truth. But the real truth is that there's always hope, and Hashem is only good. Hashem is good, and He loves you, and He only wants your good ultimately. So what to do? You have to aim high. You have no choice but to aim high and look for Hashem's real good. To do that, you have to close your eyes to this world. You have to really close your eyes to what you see and what's being attacked. And even if people make fun of you, you're a dreamer, you're not a real person, you're floating. I can't. I need to survive. I need oxygen. Any drop of anything else is going to kill me, chas v'shalom. It's going to destroy me. So therefore I have no choice but to live at the real reality. And I believe it. And the more you believe in it, the more it sheds its light onto a person to save him and to make breakthroughs that even people afterwards, they can't believe it. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe you got out of this. I don't believe it. It was clear, for sure, dead end, finished. And yet, how could it be? Because a person turns to Hashem. He turns for the real truth. And the real truth of Hashem is to be found where? By these true tzaddikim who are teaching people to live by this higher standards of truth, of living. To go with that and not to be convinced by despondency, what's about the futility words that bring a person down. Even if it comes from people who are righteous people and big people and everything, the fact that it's bringing me down is it's not coming from the real truth, it's coming from the Yetzer Hara, who's using the truth to bring me down. So therefore I have to aim for the real truth, to find this real truth. Yes.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yes.
Try to ask it in the reverse. When you see despondency in another person,
Right.
and you feel like there's nothing you can do to help, and
It's hurting you.
Huh?
And it's hurting you.
Well, but you're more concerned for that for the other person,
Right.
and you just
How could you help them?
yeah.
What's the question?
When you see someone else in a situation where it's finished in a way, what can you do to help them?
Yeah.
So that's your mission is at that moment to give that person only encouragement,
Hope.
only hope, only hope. There are stories, right? Not just stories that we say there are stories like we heard it from other people. There are actual people who made it when they were dead end situations, literally. And that Hashem is running their life, and in a second things can be transformed like this, whether terminal illnesses, anything. There are cases. Nachon, it's true they're the minority, because the minority hang on not to give up. That's the whole thing. The majority didn't hold on all the way. And our goal is, when we see people like that, to give them that encouragement. And if we can't, so like the story I told Rabbi Nachman Borstein, he said, please leave. If I can't give them that encouragement, so I'm not a good environment for that person. I should find people who are, yes, a good environment to give that encouragement for that person, and me not, if I can't do that. But again, the teachings of the tzaddikim is important that I learn them also, so that I can give it over, so I can pass it on to give that message. So it's not just the tzaddikim are doing that, but every Jew has this responsibility to save other people by giving them da'at, giving them words of Yirat Shamayim to help them to keep on going. Everyone has an obligation to do that. But in order to do that, I have to have received it also.